Hello, my name is LaVon Williams, and welcome to the first episode of Urban 411. We are more than a podcast. We're an opportunity for the community to engage in a conversation about topics that are long overdue, topics that will be designed and developed to help empower us, to inform us, to enlighten us, but most of all, to engage in empowerment. And that's what Urban 411 was designed to do. We've been waiting for a long time to get this going. Thank you to my producer, Kevin Clark, for kept nudging me that we need to get this done. And so today we're here to get it going. It will be broadcast and available to you once a week. And I invite you to go to our email address at urbane@gmail.com and send me topics that you would like to talk about. But today we're going to talk about our who, what, and why we're doing this. Urban 411, as I said earlier, is more than a podcast. It's an opportunity for us to engage in conversations that are long overdue in our oftentimes underserved communities. What we do, we're going to give you information, we're going to challenge your thoughts, we're going to ask for your input so that we can talk about topics or have conversations about things that we need to do to move our community and our people as a whole to a position of empowerment. So we're using our voices. We're not just allowing other people to speak for us. And we're no longer feeling the need to have to go through groups and organizations to have our say. Urban 411 will help enlighten you, give you information. I hope you will give me information that will allow us to make our community stronger by helping change the narrative that's been written about us. And one of the things we're going to talk about today in our first episode is the why we're doing this. The why we're doing it is so important. It's more important than who we are or what we're going to do. The why is going to be to help us understand that for too long we keep allowing ourselves to be defined by the narrative. In fact, some of the things that people want to do to help us have resulted in further stereotyping things about our people. And so what we're going to do is help break those myths. We're going to help write our own narrative. We're going to help expand our understanding of what we need to do in order to become empowered. And since we're just coming off the celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's holiday, I think this is a good time for us to talk about that holiday. We are so proud that finally we got a national holiday. But what we have to be very careful about is how we're allowing that holiday to be celebrated. What it has become to many is a chance to feel good about themselves, to feel good about America. They only want to embrace that part about Dr. King that talked about love and unity. No one wants to talk about the final stages of his life. In fact, the quotes that he basically gave from the letters in the Birmingham jail or even after that time frame in his life are rarely quoted in America. But those are the quotes that America needs to hear because it puts America on notice that we still have a long way to go in fulfilling his dream. So rather than just celebrating his dream, let's just talk about a couple of things about his dream. His dream was never designed nor intended for us to be complacent. His dream was never about us getting to a point in our lives as African Americans that we have turned on each other. It was not about us pointing fingers as to who's done what or who's not doing what, but his dream was about us working together collectively to bring not only America forward, but African Americans forward. And so we never hear quotes about his stance about the Vietnam War. We never hear quotes about his stance about the injustice that was still taking place in spite of all the work and all the lives that had been lost. And we never hear quotes really about the stand that he took about poverty, which was his last, as you know, fight. Prior to him being killed, he was organizing a war on poverty. So those are things that urban America would like for us to give an opportunity for you to be able to talk about. Urban America wants to take this type of information and help move it forward. We also want to talk about not being victims of distractions. There's a bunch of websites and email posts and, Facebook posts and other things that are designed to get us into these arguments. And one that I remember us going into most recently was who had better chicken, Popeyes or Chick-fil-A? Now, come on, Black America. Do we really need to be involved in arguments about who had the best chicken sandwiches when we know that come April 1st, the census is coming out? Couldn't our time have been better utilized in helping promote awareness that come April 1st, we need to do all that we can to make sure our undercounted communities are counted, whether it's black, red, yellow, or white. We must understand that our census figures determine the resources and the redistricting for voting. Those are the conversations we should be having. There's a bunch of the email sites that have been coming out now that is designed to suppress our vote. vote. I call it digital suppression. They want to get us so caught up in a fight that we won't vote. We have to vote. And so those are the type of conversations that Urban 411 wants to have. We don't want to distract you by making you angry, nor do we want to appease you by making you think all is well. We're going to have heart-to-heart conversations about what's going on in America, especially Black America, and what we can do about it. So let's go back to Dr. King. One of the quotes that mean the most to me that I think is never, you never see it in mainstream America, is when he said, freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor, it must be taken by the oppressed. Now, some may read that as to be violent. No, what that means is standing up for yourself, using your voice, not letting them tell you or invite you to the table. If you get to a meeting and there's no room for the table, then you sit on the table, you stand on the table, or as Fannie Lou Hamer said, you bring your own folding chair. But what you have to do is understand that you cannot allow people to use a system that was never designed to serve us as the process by which we're served. So when he said for us to understand that the oppressor will never voluntarily give us what we deserve to have, he meant for us to understand that no matter what people give to us, that's all they want us to have. But there's more for us. I got into a conversation recently with a young person who I was making a comment about the lack of diversity and representation in this organization. And they said, well, they use me, and that's the thing that we have to overcome. Stop being the first and the only, and stop being happy with being the first or the only. What we have to do is understand that America belongs to all of us. Our blood is in this. And what we have to do is say that when we are the first, when we are the only, that is a bigger problem, because in the 21st century, Black Americans should no longer be the first or the only in anything that's positive and progressive. Another quote that comes to mind is when he says that at some point in time, the cup of endurance runs over. Well, I would submit to you that time is long overdue. I've been for the past year now tracking the progress of the corporate America here in Nebraska. And I go to the section of the newspaper every Sunday where they're talking about new hires and new promotions. And so far, I've only seen 2 Black people represented in these ads for the past year. What that means is that our corporate America infrastructure, they're not practicing diversity and inclusion at the top level that matters. We have to understand at some point that is not acceptable for us. Our cup should have run over a long time ago, given the amount of energy and effort we've put into America. So what we have to do is stop being comfortable. We have to stop being complacent. If people are not comfortable with your presence, that means you're probably doing something right. If people feel that you are not playing well in the sandbox, that means that you're probably doing something or saying something right. If you find yourself always getting awards and recognitions by organizations that have no representation of us at the table, then you should question the validity or the integrity of those awards. People have to start making corporate America, making white America show their work. If they truly believe in what we're accomplishing, it needs to be reflected from the top down. Those are the values and virtues that Dr. King wanted to leave with us. That was his legacy. But oftentimes that legacy is being overshadowed, overridden, as I say, whitewashed by America that wants to create, pardon the phrase, a bunch of happy Negroes. We can't settle for that any longer. We cannot wait to be invited to issues that impact our lives. We can't be comfortable with us being the only one at the table. Nor should we be uncomfortable when we see people speaking up that may not say things that other people want to embrace. What we have to do is join in them. And if you're not comfortable having your voice at the table, then don't try to silence or mute them. Even if you have to do it behind the scenes, what you cannot do is afford to allow yourself to be part of keeping Black America silent. And that's probably the best gift that Urban 411 will give to not just the Omaha community, but the national community, is we're going to talk about those topics. We're going to talk about those subjects. We're going to help advance this notion because Dr. King got it right. We're graduating a group of people who are putting us back. They're taking us back. And what you have to understand is that, yes, we should collaborate. We should get along. We should make sure that we're working together more than we're working apart. But when things don't feel right, then speak up and let it be known. The final quote that I leave with you about Dr. King is this. A man dies when he refuses to stand for what is right, what is just, or he just refuses to take a stand in general. Where do you stand in that? Are you becoming complacent? Have you given up your voice? Have you decided that you rather reap the benefits of your silence than allow African Americans to advance? What are you doing about the injustice, the lack of diversity, the lack of inclusion that we see taking place? What are you saying about the gentrification? And what you have to do is quit relying on organizations and people to speak for you. The biggest injustice you can do is when you give up your voice. The next is when you give up your vote. Those are two most powerful things that you have, your voice and your vote. You have to use them wisely. You must educate yourself in how you use them, and you must use them consistently. And so we have two major dates coming up. We have the primaries coming up in Nebraska. Make sure that you vote. Your vote is counted. And we have the census coming up April 1st. Make sure that every person in your household is counted, because that will determine then how resources go into your communities. And once those things come into your community, make sure they're equally proportioned out to address the needs as they arise. And so I am happy to be able to put on Urban 411, and I thank my producer, Kevin Clark. Kevin, I thank you so much for pushing me to get forward with this, and so I think it's long overdue, but it's happening. This is LaVon Stennis Williams, and thank you for tuning in.